thing, but I think always being mindful of where your strengths are and where your weaknesses might be, and addressing them and building up those muscles. And I think curiosity helps inform what those strengths and weaknesses
answer your questions and go. But I found myself almost becoming a therapist to someone in an interview.
Humans are beautiful and absolutely wild. Like they are, you see the whole gambit with people.
So I'd like to welcome all of our listeners back to another episode of the UX Online's podcast. And today we've got a really awesome guest on, Aryn Korpalski. Now she's the VP of Corporate Services at Fieldwork. And first of all, a big shout out to Fieldwork for their recent sponsorship of one of the episodes. And you can find that episode in the bio to this episode, which was my conversation with Victor Yocco. Now back to today's episode. Really happy to have Aryn on today. She got a lot of experience working in various roles within Fieldwork, and she's going to deep dive into what Fieldwork offer, what they do in terms of their research facilities, and how that can level up your research studies, whether that's as a UX researcher, a customer experience researcher, or anywhere within the field of UX. So she's going to deep dive into that, but also she's going to explain how she ended up in the role that she is now, why she loves it so much, and also some advice that she would like to share with you listeners and those of you who are looking to grow in your career, whether it be UXR or any field that is connected to research and user experience. So yeah, really happy to have you on today, Aryn.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you on. Thank you. Cool. So let's do the introduction. So obviously, I've introduced who you are, what you do, maybe a different type of guest as well, because maybe not a role that we're familiar with hearing on this episode. So I'll be interested into hearing what kind of your role entails. But would you like just to give an introduction as to who you are, and then maybe we can talk about also what you do?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I am a Chicago-based, really research support specialist, which means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But really at the heart of what I get to do every day is match researchers with their ideal participants to gain insight for business impact. And as I mentioned, it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So some days I get to work with human factors engineers who are working to bring really life-changing medical devices to market. And then other days I get to work with UX researchers who are really looking to make their website or app or experience, whatever that might be, ideal for their ideal participants. So there's really never a dull moment in what I get to do. And I was reminded of sort of a quote this last week. Someone was speaking about how all people really want is to be heard. They want, they have the question of like, do you see me? Do you hear me? Does what I say matter? And I get to sit in this place of saying, yes, it does. And here's the people that really want to hear it. So that's really where Fieldwork comes in as a support service, and what I get to do as a support service to our clients.
Wow, that's awesome. That sounds really interesting. So I imagine you get to work with all different types of people, because that's what Fieldwork does, right? Obviously, I think we'll talk about this later more in depth, but so Fieldwork supports researchers I imagine, in different sectors and areas of research.
Yeah, we do. The way I like to describe it is, you look at anything that you use, whether it's a service that you listen to, a music streaming service, an online platform, a food that you really like to eat, a drink that you really like to drink. There was probably research that went into that to make it your favorite, make it enjoyable for you. And we sit really at the base of all of that research is, our clients can't do research just on themselves, right? They want to talk with the people that they either are consuming it, buying their product, or they want to be consuming it or buying it. And so we come in and make that happen for our clients. But really anything that you're probably using, touching, seeing, even as far as like litigation that happens, we get to work with trial consultants, predominantly here in the US, to test their cases. So there's just so many areas that what we do touches, but we're, a couple steps removed from it. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Obviously, you talk about things that I love, research in general, user experience. No, that's really cool as well to work. Also, to be able to see all the different types of research and the different people that come to you? Because like you mentioned, there's a few maybe things that you don't consider research going into, but like certain services or processes that obviously have a lot of research that goes into them behind that. So that was really interesting. But I'm also interested to hear more about you and maybe your background. Like, is this what you've always wanted to do, or was there a different dream once upon a time? How did you end up to where you are now?
Oh my gosh, Dale, it's I feel like this story happens with a lot of people that are more in the market research space, but I really
Sure.
fell into it. Throughout my undergrad, I was an international studies major. I was going to join the Peace Corps or teach English somewhere. I didn't know what I was going
Uh,
to do at that point. And by
yeah.
way of some connections, I got connected with Fieldwork. And as I started working there, I started in our office in Denver. I really fell in love with what our work does, this like intersection of hospitality and human
Mm,
insights. Within Fieldwork, our tagline is focus on the research, we'll do the rest. And I think what
okay.
I feel like that's really saying is I want to help set you up to be the best you can at what you're doing. And
Mm,
I'm gonna make that happen for you. And so, with what we get to do is making sure our clients feel supported, making sure our participants feel supported, and really
mm,
looking out for each of their blind spots because we've been through it before.
yeah.
So I did not seek this industry out, but I feel like there was, the universe worked in a way that it brought me to
Mm,
a place that I got to really utilize what I love and a skill set that I brought to the table. I've always throughout my life been in positions to be an event planner. So, small
uh,
ways, big ways, planning, homecoming in high school and then throughout
okay.
college and afterwards. And I think there's a lot of similarities between event
Yes.
planning and what we do is, you're tasked with thinking multiple steps ahead. You're
Mm,
really as an event planner, leveraging your experience to benefit your clients. And I think most importantly, like you're ready for anything. You just don't know what's going to come your way. And so
that's
you need
true.
be able to be prepared, but also flexible to navigate those different paths. And it just kind of all came together with the support that we get to offer our clients. So, no, I
Wow.
didn't find the field, but I think the curiosity that I've always had has kept me
Mm,
in this industry and really kept me passionate about the work that we do.
wow. That's awesome. So I can see in your personality you'd be great at event planning. So you
Thank
probably
you.
come into the right field as well in terms of working for field work. And it's kind of like a similar role, as you mentioned as well, like planning. Obviously, you get these clients, they want to research something or they need to find out something. You kind of plan everything and give them what they need as like a package, like an event. So no, that's actually a really good analogy. That's cool. That's cool. And what skills do you feel you've been able to transfer over from this event planning that you used to do at high school, etc., into your day-to-day role now? What specific skills do you feel have been utilized?
So, I think two that really come to mind are communication and relationship building. For
Mm,
any event to be successful, it's really the before work of planning everything, making sure everyone has the timeline to be able to execute that day of. So being a really clear communicator, and it's the same with our clients as we're going through
mm,
research projects. Things come up that
yeah.
especially when you're navigating new targets or timelines, there are things that
Mm,
pop up. So being able to really communicate what you're seeing well proactively and speak the language of your clients. Something that Fieldwork
yeah.
does is, I mentioned this in the beginning, we support a lot of different industries. And
Mm,
while what we do is very similar across those different industries, what our clients are doing with the research is really different and the vocabulary they use is really different. So
mm,
really trying to mirror the clients as well to make sure we're speaking the same language.
yeah.
Even when you're both speaking English, there can be a wide range of what you're actually
No, no,
saying.
I've experienced that.
Um, and then the next skill is really relationship building. I think with
Mm,
any successful partnership, it's about building that trust with your
yeah.
client. Again, I come back to it's not if, it's when something's going to pop up. And so having
Yeah.
that clear line of communication with them and the trust that you've really built in one another that we're both working for the same goal. We're
Mm,
both trying to set one another up for success, and that needs to be
mm.
built on really a strong foundation of trust.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's probably a good time maybe to go into maybe field work in a bit more detail because you're touching on things like processes and how you work with clients, etc.
Yeah.
So, what is it's probably a difficult question to answer because there is an atypical like process, but what is the typical process if there is one with a client? So a client, I don't know, they want to research something, they want to find out something about a new product or product they have. What is that process and how does that look from fieldwork side? Like what do you offer? What are do you provide the final insights or do you provide the structure to perform that research? What does that look like? It's probably a loaded question, but
No, no, I'm happy. It's a great question. I love to talk about it. So where our client has a question they're trying to answer and they want to talk to people. So what we'll do is we'll initially start learning from our client, who do you want to talk to and what does that space look like? There's everything from doing research via Zoom, having a conversation there. We have facilities where people will come in and do research. We have clients that really want to get to see the respondent's life. And so they'll go into the
okay.
respondent's home with an ethnography. So there's a lot
Wow.
of different methodologies our clients will use. So that initial conversation is understanding the who and the where they
Mm,
want to meet them. And then once we launch a project, as Fieldwork goes through the recruiting process, and I think something that's unique to Fieldwork and even goes back to what I mentioned earlier about having the opportunity to allow people to be heard is we speak with
mm,
all of our participants over the phone prior to them coming into the research, which there's a ton of advantages to that. But I think
mm,
namely is having an open line of communication with our participants so they can understand what's expected of them and what they can expect from us.
yeah.
So we go out and find the right people for our clients,
Okay.
and then we create the ideal space for them, whatever that might be. So our clients are really the ones that are in there gaining the insights. They're the
Mm,
UX researchers, they're the human factors engineers that are actually gaining those insights. But we
mm,
handle all of the
okay.
respondent logistics.
Okay.
And I think some people can think it's, well, you're just calling someone and inviting them to a place. Well, I don't know the last time you tried to host a party and how many RSVP yeses you got and how many people actually showed up. I think
It's
that
true.
that number can be different. So we
And also
really come
party
in and
crashes
support.
as well.
Right, exactly. Yes, people. Yes, I mean, that's the data quality. I think is something that's so
Yeah.
valuable and something that we really work hard with our process to
Mm.
make as little as possible, a little as little of a concern as possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that is something we spoke about actually in our own personal call last week that the recruitment side of things for a researcher, UX researcher, obviously in the role that I do specifically, that's probably before I became a UX researcher, I didn't realize how big of a part that would be of my day-to-day role. The recruitment, the choosing the right sorts of participants that you need for a particular sort of research study, and then the logistics of trying to invite them, trying to entice them to come, and then the ones actually showing up later, and how many are actually going to show up, and how that's going to affect or not affect your final insights. So I imagine for a company or a team of researchers, this is also a big weight off their shoulders because that's something that they can leave with you. You're going to handle the logistics of that and make sure that it's all set up based on what they need. So, yeah, no, it's an amazing service that you're offering and something that, to be honest, I wish I knew about in my previous roles.
Yeah,
um,
Dale, I don't know if you've ever done the exercise of like creating a pie and looking at your day and like how many hours am I doing this and this and this, or looking at it from a week perspective of like
I
we don't
haven't,
realize how
but
much
I should do.
headspace is. I think it was helpful. It was more just, okay, Aryn, you need to make some changes when I did it. But you think about where your
Yeah.
headspace goes, and
Mm,
as a researcher is you want the majority of your headspace to go to the research and the insights, and
absolutely. Yeah.
that's where it's we get to leverage our expertise so you can leverage your expertise.
Yeah, no, and that's actually a good point because especially when in my previous role I was a sole UX researcher, so many times I was handling two or three projects at the same time. So I found myself maybe I was heading to doing some specific analysis on some I don't know for an example some interview transcripts. then in the meantime, I'd be receiving emails from participants organizing the next research study, and that I always found that it interrupted my like thought process, and I'd keep in and out, and it did probably affect my like final results because I was distracted by recruitment and all that side of things. So yeah, it's actually a good thing that I could do in the future, kind of zoom out, split my life up into a pie and see where my headspace is at. So that's a good thing to do. Thank you for the idea.
Let me know how it goes.
I also wanted to delve into, so your specific role now obviously is your corporate clients. Have you done any other roles within Fieldwork, and how did that differ to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I have had a long journey at Fieldwork. I've worn a lot of different hats. I started out as a client service specialist at our Denver facility. So I was
Okay.
on site in a facility, really managing the respondents and the clients on site. I've been a project manager, and then I've come up to our corporate team. And I think that
Okay.
really the value that I've found in all these different roles is the different vantage points they've offered me.
Yeah,
I think so
absolutely.
often it's, until they say walk a mile in another person's shoes. I've walked a
Mm.
lot of miles in a lot of different shoes at Fieldwork. And so I think that experience has allowed me to speak more holistically to the entire process, as well as
Yeah.
identify where there's opportunities for improvement, really celebrate the big wins because there's such
Mm.
big wins when you've been in that position.
Yeah.
So I've worn a lot of different hats at Fieldwork, and um, I think even in my role right now, it touches so many different areas of our business, from operations to marketing to business development to
Mm.
compliance. And I think being able to be really well rounded has
Mm.
helped me be successful, and I think helped to elevate Fieldwork. And it's a lot of the mentality within the organization is you wear a lot of different hats. There's I don't think there's anybody who has just one job at Fieldwork. You wear a lot of different hats, but I think it provides a better experience for anyone that we work with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Fieldwork itself, is it a large company? Do you have a lot of colleagues?
Yeah,
And also maybe while you're explaining that, maybe the history of Fieldwork, because I'd be interested to hear that as well, like how old
yeah,
you
of
are.
course.
Has it always been in this sort of like field of research, or has it been involved in other fields? Be interesting to know.
Yeah, so we have a long history. We've been around for almost 45 years,
Oh,
and we
wow.
were founded by a group of researchers. So it was a group of researchers that they were traveling across the country, sometimes across the globe, going and doing focus groups, but they felt like there was more that could be created and offered with the recruitment process and the focus group space. And so
Mm.
they decided to build it themselves, very
Why not?
entrepreneurial of them. And so that's where Fieldwork really started, is a group of
Mm.
researchers, a group of moderators that saw a need that would help them be better researchers and moderators. And we really
Mm.
started with the consumer packaged goods space, really traditional focus groups.
Okay.
And that's evolved so much over time. As you mentioned, like I didn't know this thing existed. We hear that
Mm.
from clients all the time. If I had no idea you were here, I had no idea that you did something like that. And I think part of
Yeah.
that is that we've expanded into so many more spaces. I think the
Mm.
culture around us is it's more demanding than ever when it comes to products, services, what they're offering, how holistic they are, who can
Mm.
access them. And so, what used to be the friends and family interviewing process of I have an
Mm.
idea, let me talk to friends and family who, statistically are more likely to be like you.
Yes.
There's value in it, but when you're looking to really grow a product, service, whatever that
Mm.
is, you want to speak to so many more people, and people that also don't have a vested interest in you. It's great to get mom's feedback, but mom's going to tell you she loves you no matter what, usually. So I
Exactly,
think
yeah.
that
It's
those
true. Well,
true
you hope so.
insights, yeah. So we've really expanded from there. So we started in the CPG space. We really grew into the medical device space, and I would say
Okay.
that's been a huge area of growth for us as
Mm.
these companies that are requiring FDA approval. There's human interviews they have to do to
Sure.
get FDA approval. And
Mm.
then I think it really in conjunction with that, the CX space is as
Okay.
more researchers have found the importance of, or I think not even found the important, I think people always knew it was important, but maybe didn't know how to get to it. But when you're doing
Mm.
research from the accessibility lens of making sure
Mm.
that people with limited hearing, low vision, limited mobility can
Mm.
access, use, enjoy your products and services.
Mm.
And then
Nice.
I mentioned earlier, navigated into the mock trial space. So the
Mm.
company's really evolved. And I think that 4 years ago, when in-person meetings in whatever capacity were not happening, it pushed us into this other area of growth of our business and really
Mm.
honing in on why that connection is so valuable and why that
Yeah.
connection in person is so valuable. I think in every walk of life, people realize they maybe took for granted the human to human connection.
Yeah.
And it's given us this like beautiful articulation of why it's so valuable, why getting really as close to the consumer as
Mm.
possible is so important. And I think for
Yeah.
me in my personal life, that rings true as well.
No, no, absolutely. I think that's a nice point as well. Because of COVID and that weird time in our history, obviously that did push research, obviously online during that period, yeah,
Mhm.
specifically. But then later on, obviously researchers probably continued to be predominantly focused online, especially user experience, customer experience, etc. But yeah, it is important for researchers to look for opportunities where they can do that in-person research because it can give you different insights. Obviously, in-person interaction is more enriching just from a social aspect. So
Mhm.
you're gonna get different insights and feedback in-person research as well. So it's nice also that that's been facilitated by Fieldwork. Just out of curiosity as well, do you have any, because you mentioned before that you were more on the ground at one point in one of your roles in facilitating research. Do you have any just interesting experiences that you can share? Obviously, I don't know, with NDAs and stuff what you can or can't share. But I don't know, any memorable research that you saw conducted or just interesting from a personal perspective?
Yeah, there's a lot I can't share because of NDAs, but
Sure,
what I
I
think
can
the
imagine.
most interesting part of my experience being on the ground, and it's still one of my favorite roles. Whenever there's an opportunity to sit at the front desk of one of our facilities, I'll always jump on it because you get to see
Mm,
humans are beautiful and absolutely wild. Like they are, you see the whole gambit with people and the things that people are willing to share with you. People have shared some very intimate details with me when I was just trying to like collect their homework for research. And I'm
I
sure
can
as a
imagine.
researcher, you're like, that's not the
Yes.
question I asked, but we're going there. But I think
Yeah.
it's really driven home. So you have the respondent side. It's so fun to see these respondents, especially see. I love when we get to do the kids research to see
Mm,
these kids that are just. It goes back to wanting to be heard, like wanting to
yeah.
be validated for your existence. Is to see these
Mm.
kids so excited that they get to like sit in this room and share their thoughts and feelings. So I love that. I really love watching. We've done some research. The jury work and the medical device research is you see people, they come in the morning and they're complete strangers. They don't know
Mm,
each other. They spend a couple of hours or a day together, whatever that might be, and they walk away friends or they
mm,
walk away sharing like I didn't think people listened to me. I didn't think my voice
mm,
mattered to inform this device. And so I
mm.
love that part of what we get to do. And then you have the flip
Yeah.
side of the clients is watching them in that back room, just their wheels are spinning of what they just heard. And so I love
Mm,
getting to be kind of at the center of both of that. You have the excitement of the respondents, and then you see the clients in the back room thinking, there's so much that goes into the moments of research. There's the
mm,
before, they have to have a concept that they're testing, and there's a lot on the line of gaining that insight. So that
mm,
maybe it's a day, maybe it's 2 days, but there's so much time and money that happened before and after. And the congratulatory email is always wonderful, but to actually sit there and at the end of a long night, the clients have been there from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. they're exhausted, but they're like
Yeah.
still energized and excited.
Mm.
Um, so that's what I really loved about being on the ground. And we all have our war stories of the interesting person that came in with some interesting opinions. Seeing respondents walk out of the room.
Yes.
It's never a dull moment.
No, no, I can imagine. No, that's it's nice you touch on those points as well because, like, as a researcher, when you're setting up a project or when you just enter the field and want to become a UX, CX researcher, whatever it may be, you don't imagine those the sides of people like that. You think they're just going to come and answer your questions and go, but I found myself almost becoming a therapist to someone in an interview, and you're like, why are we talking about this? But because you want to build a rapport with someone, and that's when someone becomes relaxed, and then obviously they start to give you the insights and feedback that you're looking for. So it's finding that balance between making them feel comfortable and also getting the insights that you need. And a part of that can mean becoming a therapist or listening to people's backstories or whatever it may be. And also, like you say, sometimes people get very heated about certain things, maybe walk out or disappear, which is okay. It gives you probably
Yeah.
what you need to know. But no, thanks for sharing those stories. It's nice to hear.
Mhm.
Um, I
It's an
also
art
wanted
and a
to. I
science.
go. Sorry.
I think for what you guys do, it's an art and a science is
Yeah,
listening, hearing,
absolutely.
talking,
Yeah.
getting what you need out of the time together.
Absolutely. No, no, no. That's a good point as well. It is an art and a science because it's also, I would say, you almost need to become a psychologist because you need to understand and allow someone that moment to feel at ease with you. And it's not always going to be easy with everybody. And I've noticed there are some people that I've interviewed and they're never going to give you much. They'll give you a bit, so they'll give you a bit of feedback, just what you need, and then they'll go, and that's okay. But maybe just speaking to someone that they can give you that bit more, and it's finding that balance, like you say, it's an art, and to get what you need, but also to build a relationship with that person. I've made also some good friends with participants. So yeah, no, it's a really nice point you bring out. And actually, I wanted to move into now, allow you to also share some advice because obviously this podcast is also set up for people that are looking to become UX researchers, so they're maybe early on in their careers or even not even enter the field yet, they're interested in becoming a researcher. Do you have any kind of career advice for those ones? It could be something personal from what you've seen or what you've done in your career that you feel is useful for people to know, or even just from what you've noticed from researchers, how they do things, or just speaking to researchers. Maybe you've come across some good advice yourself from them. What would you like to share for our listeners?
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice, and I think this particularly applies to researchers, but I think it covers a lot of different industries, but really staying curious. I think some of the clients that I've really built great relationships with are people that are really they're just constantly asking questions. What if, how do we do this? Like, what do we, and I think that energy builds energy, right? It's so much more
Absolutely.
exciting when you're working with someone who's excited about what you're working on. So
Hmm.
continuing to stay curious. And I think building on that is not siloing yourself in any one thing. I think
Mm.
curiosity, at least in my experience, comes from being exposed to different industries, different questions, new experiences. And so, really taking all of that in. I've started sort of when I have time working with an event planner, so helping out day
Mm.
of for weddings. And it's
Yeah.
been a great opportunity for me to ask questions and then bring it back to what I do every day to say, okay, what went well here? How can I apply it? And like, what muscle am I now growing by
Mm.
doing this that maybe I wasn't growing by doing that? And it's not about a career shift. It's not changing
Mm.
everything, but I think always being mindful of where your strengths are and where your weaknesses
Yeah.
might be and addressing them and building up those muscles. And I think curiosity helps inform what those strengths and weaknesses are.